go today. It's Wave One Media today, Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame podcast, and we have a special guest today. His name is Terry the Stingray. Terry.
Hey, Craig, how are you?
How you doing today, buddy?
Good.
Yeah, it was a blessed day, blessed day. Well, today was a little struggle to get here, but we're thank God that we got here. Terry Ray is from Terre Haute. His amateur record was 95-9 as an amateur. He had a lot of amateur fights, and he even fought for the USA boxing team against the Scandinavians. And I think his best year was what, 90? When was your best year?
Best
85,
year was
85?
1985, I won the National PAL tournament, won the Indiana Golden Gloves, and then I got picked a spot on the USA team versus Scandinavia. I fought in 5 different countries over there.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And you know what was cool about that was Gerald McClellan was part of the team. He was one of the guys on the team.
Yeah, G-Man.
Yeah, and I knew right away he was going to be.
Well, he was special. So I can't believe when he knocked out Julian Jackson, who's one of the hardest punchers of all. But used to get in there and start mixing up with some of the greatest fighters in the world. I mean, what do you expect? Well, Terry, first of all, I'd like to thank Wave One Media. I'd also like to thank Roof It Forward, Wise Finances, One Day's Weddings, Genato's Pizza for our sponsors for today. Terry, one of my very first questions I ask all my fighters is, when did you start boxing? Okay,
I started boxing, Craig, about 12 years old, and I boxed for maybe 4 years, and then I took about 3 years off, and then I got really serious about it.
Okay, but what club did you start going to?
I started at Glen Boxing Club, but back then in Terre Haute they had like 4 or 5 clubs, so you had your pick. I ended up training about all of them anyway.
You hit them all.
Yeah.
I got you. Well, you got to see where the best are, right?
That's right?
And you got to spar the best. And you got to hang out and be the best. Yeah. And, your career, you was an amateur star. I still remember you back in the 80s, you was an amateur star. And you even fought one of my buddies, Stevie Wilson. You remember fighting Stevie?
Man.
Stevie was a tough guy, yeah.
Tough guy.
God rest his soul, Stevie Wilson. And he had, a lot of admirations for you. But what I try to tell people in this boxing game is you have to continue to go forward. You can't let anything stop you or slow you down. You got to continue to live out the whole process, and that's really what it is, a big process, right?
It is a process, and actually when I went from amateur to pro, and it's really you don't really know which way to turn, because there's guys trying to talk you into signing contracts.
Yes.
And I'm lucky I got on ESPN first couple of fights, and then I got injured about my 4th fight.
Okay, so when did you actually turn pro?
1986.
1986 you turned pro, and it was actually with who?
Well, I was working with Fred.
Fred Burns.
And I was on, first fight was in Atlantic City.
Oh, that's
ESPN.
pretty sweet. Yeah, ESPN.
I knocked the guy in the first round. And then I had another fight in French Lick with Larry Bird was there.
Yeah, and then how many, and let's be honest, how many TV stations did you fight on? I know you fought on USA Network.
Well, I fought on, I don't know, probably
Showtime.
12.
Yeah.
I fought on CBS twice.
CBS.
Yeah.
And then you fought on CBS twice.
Yeah.
And then you fought on USA Network.
Right.
When you fought Robert Daniels.
Right.
And then you fought on Showtime when you fought Tizzo for the championship, for the WBA World Championship. Fighting Tizzo over in their home place. I mean, you think about all the CBS Fight of the Year, 1994. So we're going to lead up to that. So you started out pro in '86, and then you made a rapid run with obviously from Terre Haute, Indiana. You was a huge ticket seller.
Well, I love Terre Haute. It was my hometown, and I was a big ticket seller. But I also realized if I was going to continued. I had a degree in political science from Indiana State University, and I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it seriously. So there's some local businessmen that helped me go to New York, and I trained with Kevin Rooney for 2 years.
And Kevin Rooney is a big, huge name. He trained Mike Tyson, obviously. So you started training over in New York.
Right, I was there.
Kind of walk us through that.
I had about 9 fights up there and won all of them.
Okay,
and
in
then,
New York.
I think I got involved with Bill Caton just for a little while, and they were trying to give me a title shot, and I think I got injured or something happened, but it just didn't work out. And
I got you.
I ended up luckily meeting about a year later Angelo Dundee.
Angelo Dundee, who trained Muhammad Ali, one of the one of the great fighters in the world, and he had Sugar Ray Leonard.
He was a real gentleman, a true ambassador
and
to the sport.
He worked your corner a few times, correct?
Oh
Terry?
yeah, he worked my corner probably 10 times.
Yeah, Angelo Dundee, and you think about all those fights you had, and I can remember, you fighting on CBS.
Yeah, CBS.
CBS in 1994, the fight of the year, and I can remember. So I remember that you lost your trunks. Do you remember that when you lost your trunks?
Well, what happened was
Go ahead.
I had black trunks. He had black trunks, and they said, "Well, you got to get a different pair of trunks." And we looked everywhere. We couldn't find any trunks, so I had to borrow some trunks of Irish Dan Murphy, and I was getting ready to fight on national television.
I know.
But I think they brought me good luck because I fought a hell of a fight.
That was a great fight. And again, you fought Kenny Keene, and that actually fight could have went either way. Obviously, I was biased. I thought maybe you won, but Kenny Keene was from Idaho and was like an IBA world champion or something. He's a really good fighter.
Right, he was a good fighter.
IBO champion. He's a really good fighter. Great fighter, Kenny Keene out of Idaho. And you think about that. But I'm going to tell you something, Terry. Everywhere I'd go, like when I was fighting Camacho in 2003, okay, and this is about you. I was fighting Camacho, and a guy come up to me. His name was Robert Daniels, and he was a cruiserweight champion of the world. And he said, "You make sure you tell Terry Ray I said hello." And I remember you fighting Terry Daniels on USA Network, and that fight, and I knew you won, but when it took so long for the decision to be made, I said they just took it from him, and that was a rough pill to swallow.
I couldn't believe it. I actually took that fight very seriously because I was promised a world title shot.
Yeah, and he ended up being a world champion too. Yeah.
And I trained 3 months for that fight in Florida, and I thought there's no way they can steal this from me, but they did.
They're right there on national TV.
And his hometown actually booed and started a riot.
Oh, I know. It's funny. I went to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. The year before when Robert got inducted, he got inducted in the Florida Boxing Hall, and Terry Ray was inducted in the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame in 2020. From Terre Haute, got a huge write-up. Both of them are Hall of Famers. He's in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. He's in the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. But I go up to Robert Daniels. I'm like, "Hey man, I think Terry beat you," and he won't even talk to me about it.
He's a good guy.
He's a great guy, nice great guy. They're a humbling guy, and I love Florida. I love the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. I go every year. It's a great
Well,
thing.
One thing I found, Craig, is that guys that you fight, you're usually friends with them on the outside of the ring. Once you get inside the ring, you got to turn that. You got to get that meanness on, and you got to win the fight. So.
All right. Well, I know you're a big star, but I was going to talk about Marvin Johnson. Okay, this is
best from Indiana.
Yeah, Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame Museum, and your picture's in the museum there. Yeah. I know you haven't been able to see it. We have a museum in Vevey, Indiana. And it is like a big, if you've been to the fairgrounds, it's like a whole big area for the fairgrounds. And we got a ring on one side. We got the museum on the other side. That they train them there and everything. I don't do anything involved with the training. I just put all my memorabilia up there. And Terry Stingray is the class of 2020 of Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame. I wanted to congratulate you on that.
I feel very proud that you guys inducted me.
Yeah, because you think of Indiana, obviously we think of Marvin Johnson, you know what I'm saying? We think of the great fighters from Indiana. And actually you was a WBF world champion as well.
Right, and also fought for the WBA
WBA world title. I mean, obviously that's you ranked in the world. You fought some of the greatest fighters in the world. Well, what would you say was your proudest moment in boxing?
Believe it or not, Craig, I think the fights I lost were my proudest because
I agree too.
I mean, I did. When I fought on USA Network against Daniels, Sean O'Grady had 7-3 for me, and he said they're taking a long time for these scorecards.
Yeah, he did have a 7.
I got nailed on that one.
Yeah.
But that's boxing, and you move on.
Yeah, and then the Kenny Keene fight I thought was a phenomenal fight as well.
Well, that's actually in a book. It's Tales from the Vault, 100 Greatest Classic
fights, and they put
And they put a whole chapter about that.
Yeah,
fight.
they did. I mean, that was one of the best fights I ever seen on CBS. It was the fight
For
of the
big men.
Yeah, for
We
fight.
threw a lot of punches.
Yeah, the fight. It was the fight of the year.
Yeah.
You know, I remember ABC's fight of the year. It was a great fight. You fought some great fighters. I mean, what would you like to say to any of your fans out there today? What would you like to say to any?
Well, I appreciate everybody that's supported me and rooted for me, and I think I try to give them all the best action I could, win or lose. And one thing about boxing, you go in the ring and you're by yourself. So if you got a bad night, man,
it's a real bad night.
long night,
Yeah.
especially when you're in there with a world-class fighter.
Yeah, and one thing I had always admired is, from you is you stayed with it, regardless of the hurdles or regardless of the obstacles. You saw it all the way through.
Well, it was funny, Craig. After the Hall of Fame, Fred Burns, who's a good friend of mine and promoted most of my fights, said, one thing about you, Terry, I really admired you. You would take every fight that we
Offered
asked
you,
you to take, and I did. I would fight anybody. I actually fought Brian Nielsen over in Denmark. He was, I think, 39-0.
He even fought Tyson too.
And, I went over there and lasted 5 rounds with a guy.
Yeah.
He eventually pushed me down enough that I didn't have the weight to hang with him.
So I wanted to go back to training in New York. So Custom Modest, one of the trainers there, Teddy Atlas, correct?
Right.
All of the great fighters training there in New York, and you trained there for how long?
2 years.
2 years. You're in New York training
91 and 92.
You're training with the greatest fighters to ever world. I mean, train and you fought how many fights in New York?
I think I had about 9 or 10 fights.
9 or 10 fights, beating some of the best guys in the world over there, beating some of the best, fighting on the best cards. And I mean, let's face it, New York is probably the mecca of boxing, especially at Madison Square Garden. I fought there in '96.
It's also it was a learning process for me because I was sparring with some of the best guys, Vinny Pazienza.
The movie Bleed for this.
Up there, and it taught me the basics of, and then I realized I could make it to the top.
Yes.
And that was the testing ground for me.
Yeah, and I think it's part of the growth, right? You got to go through something to grow. You know what I'm saying?
You do. That's it.
Yeah. And nobody really hands you anything. It's earned every day, and the respect. The respect is earned every day. You don't get up and expect anybody to give you anything. You have to work for it. And I think Angelo Dundee was one of the greatest trainers. He trained Muhammad Ali, right?
Without a doubt.
And he trained Sugar Ray Leonard as well. I mean, them are two of the biggest names in boxing. And then he worked your corner. How did it feel? How did you feel about Angelo Dundee in your career?
Well, I considered him a good friend, and he would actually turn down he turned down a couple fights, which I didn't agree about, but one was against James Toney, but he didn't think they were going to pay me enough. And I think he was really looking out for the fighters.
Yeah, because James Toney's a bad boy.
He's really tough.
Oh, a great fighter. Well, he's a world champion, multiple
they were going to give him
division.
Most of the money.
Of course.
And Angelo said, no, you can't do this.
Well, it's probably, if you're going to get your butt kicked or you're going to be on the, you're going to be the opponent, supposedly, you're going to get paid. And, if they're going to pay him all the money, then it wouldn't really be worth it.
Well, I guess it wouldn't be because he's the guy who knocked out Evander Holyfield.
He also knocked out Michael Nunn.
Yeah.
He's the first person to beat Michael Nunn.
Yeah.
Michael Nunn was like 39-0.
Incredible fighter.
Great fighter. James Toney, one of the greatest fighters, to live. Lights out. So you go to that level. You're training. Tell me some of the day you sparred with Vinny Pazienza. Vinny Pazienza is a 5-time world champion.
Well, actually, I spent about 3 weeks in his camp in Rhode Island. And he was getting ready to fight Gilbert DeLay for the world
title. And that was right after he had come back from the broken neck, correct?
Yeah. Well, no, I think that was before the broken neck. And
okay.
I believe so. And, I couldn't believe how much speed and power he had for his size.
For his size, yeah. He's only 154 pounds. Yeah. They have a great fighter from
Vinny Pazienza. He was a tough fighter.
Yeah, you think about some of the great fights with him and Greg and Haugen and some of the great fights. He fought Camacho. He fought some of the greatest fighters to ever live. I was a big, Pazienza fan. I'm still a fan for what he did for the sport. Too. Yeah, for what he did for the sport. You think about, all right, so what would be your relationship with one of the greatest trainers, of our era was Kevin Rooney.
Kevin was a great guy. He was really the kind of trainer that made you work. You had to work. Some days we did 6 days in the gym, which I thought was a little bit too much, but I mean, he made you work, and I think it was not everybody's Mike Tyson.
Absolutely.
And
not everybody has power.
You got to kind of adapt your style
to what he
does, and but he was a very good trainer.
Great trainer. All right. What was your encounter with Teddy Atlas? Did you have a few encounters with Teddy?
I met Teddy a few times. I really liked him. Always admired him. And
Hall of Fame trainer. Yeah, Hall of Fame trainer. You know, there's where you go to New York and you grow from being a boy to a man, and that's really what it's about. You know, what I'm saying?
It's kind of like basic training almost.
Yeah.
And you're put in there. I fought some guys like Fabian Garcia and Roosevelt Williams, who really, if you look at the records, they maybe were 8-3 or something. But
very good fighters.
When you're up in New York, they're tough.
They're tough guys.
To get through the fight, you know you can do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought one of your biggest wins is when you knocked out Bobby Crabtree.
That was everybody warned me that don't fight him. He's got heavy hands, and he just knocked out somebody. Yeah, heavyweight that Don King had.
Yes, I remember that.
He did hit hard, but I ended up stopping him in the third round.
Yeah, that was one of your biggest wins, I thought, of your career.
Cruiserweight title.
Yeah. I knew you was WBF Cruiserweight champion, you WBU Cruiserweight champion. But let's face it, the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF and WBO are the best belts that there is out there. But in all fairness, okay, you did challenge for the WBA Cruiserweight World Champion against Tizzo, and who happens to be my Facebook friend, and on Showtime. I mean, he fought on Showtime.
Well, it's not one of my favorite fights.
Well, of course not.
But he was a great fighter, a very great fighter.
All right, so what do you think about my mask that I got from Michael Spinks for my birthday?
Hey, Michael Spinks, he's the man.
All right, and then who we got coming in next year? Antonio Tarver.
Oh, he's the man too, yeah.
Here's no lie. 1983, Antonio Tarver, I don't know, 14, 13 years old, and I was 18 years old, and we were in Jacksonville, Florida, fighting in the Sunshine State Games together, and that's how far back. Now, obviously, he made it to the Rocky movie. He played in Balboa, and he's one of the great. He will come into the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame when we will bring him here to Wave One Media. We will bring you the greatest fighters in the world. And Terry Ray, you would have to be on that pedestal as one of the greatest fighters or challengers of the world. You've challenged for the world title. You know how many people do that? The percentages are very, very low.
That's the thing about boxing. People don't realize how tough it is just to get ranked in the top 10.
Yeah.
That's tough in itself. I mean, that's very tough. And then to get shots
at the world title.
And I fought maybe 10 world champions.
Yeah. So, you got to give back. Robert Daniels, world champion.
Right.
Tizzo, world champion.
Kenny Keene was world
champion.
Kenny
Keene, world champion.
I fought Vincenzo Canatore. He was world champion in Italy. I mean, those are fights where I had to take a chance because the money was good. And, I mean, to be honest, if you go overseas, you better knock the guy out.
Well, and I work at the hotel bar there in Annapolis, Indiana, and sometimes I'll ask them, I'll say, where are you from? Where are you from? I say, Terry Ray. And they'll say, oh, yeah, we know Terry Ray. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we know Terry. So Terry Ray is a big name in Terre Haute, Indiana. And, how long have you lived in Terre Haute?
Well, I've lived there all my life, except when I lived in New York and Miami.
Okay, in Miami.
Yeah.
Tell us about the times that you would go down in Miami and train, and who you would train with, and some of the prospect, stuff going on there. Tell us about your Miami experience in Florida.
Well, one thing about the difference between Kevin Rooney and Angelo Dundee was they're just different styles of training.
And Dundee's
you had
Florida,
to
right?
Get used to Dundee's training. And one thing about Dundee, he was the minimalist kind of a guy who'd tell you one thing to do every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wouldn't try to adjust your style or anything. Because at that point, I was like 20-some fights, and he just adjusts you a little bit.
Yeah.
And one thing too I liked about him, if it got too rough in there, he'd stop it because he didn't want to get hurt.
Yeah, I understand.
Before the fight.
Yeah.
And they had some big bangers in there. I was in there with some
you
tough guys, a lot of Scandinavian guys and
world rated fighters.
Yeah.
But they were in Florida. Was Randazzo? Didn't you spar with?
Yeah, Mark Randazzo. That's actually how I really got started with Mark, and he's a super nice guy, and He's got a restaurant down there now. And,
Yeah.
But he fought for the world title, and he was
and
a real deal.
Yeah, and you think about the great times that you had down there in
Oh, I
Florida.
did have a good time, and Mark and I had a lot of good times. But
We won't talk about.
We trained hard, though.
I know. We won't talk about all the good times on the record. No, Terry. You have a beautiful your son Tucker and your daughter
Kelsey.
Kelsey's very beautiful. All right, and your boy. What a great kid he's really turned out. And he had some amateur fights as well, correct?
Yeah, he had about 10 amateur fights, but I'm glad he didn't get into it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and he's took it. I think he's taking the right.
Sport.
Yeah, he's taking the right road. Yeah. And what's your relationship with both of those kids?
Oh, they're great. We're really close.
I will say this: as soon as I thought your mom was one of your backbones. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, she definitely is.
Yeah, I think your mom's been your backbone for, and that's when. So when the Hall of Fame tickets come available in 2020, obviously Terry Ray sold 5 tables. And 5 tables at $500, you do the math, okay? So, I mean, obviously he's a ticket seller. I made sure your mom was right there up front.
She was.
Yes, right
really
there up front, because what she has done in supporting you and Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame and everything that you've done in your career, what a great mom you got. And she drove you down here today. Tell them how your day started out with this the I-70 crash.
We got in the weather, and the traffic was really slow, and then we had a wreck.
Yeah,
that we waited an hour and a half for, and
we've made Wyatt wait for 2 hours. Yeah, so it's been a tough day. And at first I didn't even know you was coming because I got there and I didn't hear anything from you. I was calling the other phone, and then I called. Then you get the phone call from your mom's.
Oh, we're
phone.
here. We made it.
Yeah. I was like, oh wow, yeah, and that traffic was just barely moving, right?
Yeah.
So what would you want to say to any young up and coming fighter that was fighting today?
Well, I'm working with some kids right now at the Sweatbox Gym
in Terre
Haute, and it's a great gym.
And who runs that gym?
James Porter.
James Porter runs the gym there.
And some of these young guys have got some talent. And I really enjoy just talking to them and
giving back.
Giving back a little bit.
Yeah. And then you go there, you get a workout. It's been part of your life and everything like that. And you still work out, and then you get a chance to mentor some of the kids. And what would you say to any kid out there that was, struggling to get to the top? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, number one, you've got to put in the hard work. Obviously, you got to have some talent, and then you got to put in the hard work, and then you got to live pretty clean when you're getting ready to fight. I mean, it's a tough sport. You've got to get your road work in. You've got to get your sparring in, your bag work in, and I mean it's very physical sport, and also the mental sport, because I think in boxing, when you get to a point when you're pretty good, is when you kind of calm yourself down. When you get in the ring, you're not that nervous.
Yes, and I remember, coming here to Indianapolis. This is where the Golden Gloves finals used to be all the time, right? Right here in Indy. Then all the best fighters would fight down at the Tyndall Armory, and then the championship would go to a bigger, the Civic Center or someplace like that, right? And then we do that for the final night, and Terry was always there. He's always one of the top dogs. But some of the gyms around here, tell them some of the gyms that you used to go to, the Sarge Johnson gym, Marcus McIntyre. Yeah, what a tough guy he was.
Yeah, he was tough.
Yeah.
I drove over here so many times when Champ Shaney was alive, and I trained in his gym, and then also trained under Bob Chambers' gym. And I'd call ahead, and he'd get sparring
for you.
And that that was nice. And but I sparred. I've been in a lot of gyms. I also did some professional sparring, which the money was so good is one reason I did it. I was toward the end of my career. But boxing's a unique sport, and that it just takes so much physically to withstand what you're going through.
Okay, so your amateur record was 95-9,
right?
And then your professional record was 41-9.
41-9.
41-9.
25 knockouts.
25 knockouts. You think about that. You go to BoxRec, you pull up Terry Ray, Terre Haute, Indiana. You'll see Terry Ray, and here's the thing. Terry was a good-looking guy, obviously, especially 20 years ago. He's a stud, all right? Yeah. So everywhere I went, they'd say, oh, yeah, the golden boy. So that was, I thought, the Golden Boy. So that's how I think. And then I was a Donnie Lalonde fan, so I thought I'm gonna get the name Golden Boy. And Terry in 1986 takes the nickname Stingray. So I was like, I'm gonna steal the Golden Boy.
I actually didn't take that. Somebody gave me that. But
That's what I was wondering. It's like you had the Golden Boy name, you were going to take it, and then you took Stingray, and I'm like, I'm going to steal Golden Boy right here. And that's how I did. And we fought on the cards a few times together.
Yeah, we do. We've been friends a long time.
Yeah, a long time. I mean, I fought on Terry's undercard. I'd sell some tickets. And Terry's a very smart, intelligent guy, and he loved the sport of boxing, and still watches it now. What'd you think of the Wilder and Tyson Fury fight? Let's be honest.
I'm pretty amazed at Tyson Fury, how good he is.
Yeah, especially for his size.
Guy,
yeah, he's size.
He can box, he can punch, he can do about everything.
A lot of people don't understand that. They just see, chiseled Deontay Wilder, he's going to win, and the guys with the most muscles don't always win.
No.
They just don't happen. And I'm so very, very surprised on how really good Tyson Fury is. And what I like about her, Terry, is heavyweights were on the down for the longest time since Tyson.
Right.
But now they're back up there with Tyson Fury, Wilder, and,
Now there's
Anthony Joshua.
Usyk is up there now, too.
Yeah, the new champion.
But one thing I do like a lot about Tyson Fury, he gives away a lot of his money to homeless and
charity people. He suffered from depression.
Yeah.
He was telling the kids where he got hooked on drugs, and he struggled, and he's been able to make it through. And that's why I'm a Tyson Fury fan as well.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So what would you say to who you think right now is the best pound fighter in the world?
I would have to say Tyson Fury's got to be up there. Also,
would you give it
Alvarez,
Canelo?
Canelo. And
Well, what about Terrence Crawford?
Terrence Crawford. Yeah, all those guys.
They're really good fighters.
When you get into naming the best, I hate doing that because there's so
I
many
understand that.
great fighters out there, and it's hard to.
All right, so give me your top three heavyweights of all time.
For me, it was probably I used to admire Jack Dempsey because I read books about him as a kid and all that stuff. And then, of course, when I saw Foreman fight, I think that really kind of made me want to fight.
Yeah.
So when he fought Ron Lyle, some of those fights was incredible.
5 knockdowns in that fight, and that's what I'm trying to tell you.
When he made that comeback, it was also incredible.
Yeah.
And I was an adult, and I was like, I can't believe
At age 45, he knocks out Michael Moore, who's 26 years old, and he knocks him out for the heavyweight championship of the world. And at age 45, George Foreman's our oldest heavyweight champion, and our youngest is Mike Tyson at age 20.
And who was in his corner was Angelo Dundee.
Dundee's right there in the corner, getting all the praise and stuff.
Actually had the same trunks on he had when he fought Ali. That was his redemption.
That was amazing.
That was his redemption.
Yes, I still remember that. Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna focus right now on. So what do you say to your fans out there from Terre Haute today?
Well, I'll say this: I tried to put on the best show I could. I always fought with heart. I never took too many backward steps. I kept coming, and a few fights I lost, I thought I won. So
that's all right.
I think I've got a lot of fans out there, and I had a guy just the other day say, "Man, I'll never forget that Kenny Keene fight. I've never seen big man throw punches like that.
How many punches were thrown per round and everything?
And actually, it's hard for me to watch that fight because it was a brutal fight. It was like, wow.
Yeah, but the thing about it is you were in such preparation, such great shape at that time to withstand that power.
Plus, I think when you first get in those big fights, you don't really know what you're getting into because you train hard, but then you get into a fight and then parts of you say, "Man, I'm going to quit," because in the back of your mind you're in pain, you can't breathe.
All right.
But then if you're really a tough fighter, you somehow pull out.
Best fighter over in New York that you sparred with, in your opinion?
Probably the best fighter I sparred with was I sparred with Carl the Truth Williams once.
He's really
good. He was out
good.
of my weight class, but man, he tore me up with a jab. He tore me up with a jab, and I sparred a lot of guys up in New York and also in Miami. Sparred a bunch of guys in Miami.
Yeah, a bunch of sparring, a bunch of different things going on. Yeah, well, so you obviously, I feel being in the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame is a chance for us to leave our legacy.
Well, I think, Craig, you guys have put together a great thing because, a lot of guys are kind of forgotten. And this gives them a kind of a second chance and gives them something, to look forward to.
Yeah,
And I look forward to it every year.
Yes. Next year we got Antonio Tarver, Leon Spinks, Christy Fulmer's coming in. We got a lot of good fighters. Russell Peltz is coming in. Prince Charles Williams, world champion, coming in. Spinks will be back here again. So we'll have the greatest fighters here in Indianapolis again next year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame, we should. We are the home of the Indy 500. So does our local boys always win that? Probably not. So we want the greatest fighters in the world. Here's another guy. A kid named Floyd Mayweather fought here in the Indiana Black Expo.
Wow.
I know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I remember watching him at age 14, 15. Look at the brand he's built. He's over $100 million. You know what I'm saying? And he beat that YouTube kid. What's his name? I can't. Wyatt. What's his name? I need Wyatt's name for this.
Who are you talking about? Logan Paul?
Yes, that's it. What'd you think of the Logan Paul Mayweather fight?
It was just all about money.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a show for money. I mean, it's really not not for competition. Just thought it was a money thing.
And what would you say if now they're talking about the Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul?
Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul again. I think that's just a money thing. That's just a money thing.
Well, they're offering him $100 million.
Which, hey, I mean, respect to them. Respect to them for them to just do a one night thing and make that amount of money. I mean, that's just good on them.
Yeah, here I'm going to say another thing about Logan Paul. He regardless whether you don't like him or you do like him, he's got 2 million YouTube followers. He's a sensation, and he's a business genius. If you really see through the whole picture.
No, I'd agree. I think he's done a good job building his following up, and I mean, if I was him, I would just keep doing fights. I mean, he's making a ton of money with it.
I agree. What else he's done is he brought an interest back to boxing, and then that pays a bit of pay-per-view because they do it themselves. They don't have to worry about a manager or promoter. They do it themselves. It makes them all the money.
I don't even know what he looks like.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, right? That kid's a tough kid, and he gets in there and he competes.
Wow.
What do you think, Wyatt?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good body, and he's clearly got some ability. You know what I mean? But I mean, if you actually put him in the ring with in a real fight, I mean, he's gonna get.
Do you think he gets knocked out by Tyson Fury?
Oh, Logan Paul, yeah.
Yeah, we agree, but
yeah.
I wanted to make sure you get your take and your props on your stuff because we appreciate what you do here, Wyatt.
Oh yeah, no problem.
No problem. And Terry, I'm going to give you a couple questions. Your best memory in boxing. I'm going to give it to you there, and we're going to go for about a couple of minutes on Terry Ray.
Probably my best memory was, believe it or not, it was in. I was fighting for the USA versus Scandinavia. I fought in Helsinki, Finland. And I fought a guy that was, everybody said, he was a bronze medalist in the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And ended up, somehow I beat him.
Yeah, that's probably got to be your highest.
And I thought, man, and everybody was like, they looked at me different.
Yeah.
But I threw so many damn punches.
I got you.
I think that's what I want. I just kept throwing punches.
Did you spar with John Iceman Scully?
I sure did. John was a good friend of mine, and he's he knows everything about boxing, and I sparred with him several times and had some good times. So.
Yes, I got you. He
got his good days. I have my good days.
He's not going to.
He knows what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what he's talking about. He's still, I travel the world, and I was just at the West Coast Boxing Hall of Fame, and Michael Nunn just got inducted.
Right.
All right. And Michael Nunn, what's your feelings on Michael Nunn?
Well, Michael Nunn, I actually sparred with too.
Oh wow!
Because
Here we
go. He
go.
was in camp for a short time when I was down there with Dundee, and I sparred maybe 3 rounds with him. But he was so elusive to hit.
Yeah, he's so hard to hit.
I mean, you can't hardly hit the guy.
Yeah.
But he's very
great fighter. Great fighter. Right. And, Terry, we want to make sure that we want to thank you today for your time.
Well, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, no problem. We appreciate you. Terry Ray, 95-9 as an amateur, 41-9 as a pro, 25 knockouts. Terry, anything you want to say to your fans as we leave here today?
No, just that, I think boxing's a great sport for kids coming up because it gives them dedication to something.
I
and
always
also teaches them self-respect.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest
I
sports.
think it's, even if you don't go pro, or even if you don't even spar, but just to get in there and train.
Get a workout and train.
That means a lot. I mean, it can can get you off the street or get you out of trouble or whatever, because it's definitely something that teaches you how to be a man.
Amen. I got you there, Terry. Terry, we'd like to thank you again today, Wyatt. We'd like to thank Wave One Media. We'd like to thank Terry Ray. And where would the kids go to train at the Sweatbox Gym?
Sweatbox Gym on Poplar Street.
We want to give it a shout out there.
James
to
Porter.
James Porter, who's doing some great work out there, and all the great guys around here. And Cedric Johnson's gym, and the many gyms there. Yeah, the Sarge Johnson's gym, Layman Brewster has a gym. All the guys that do great work for this sport. You guys, thanks again. It's Terry Ray and Craig Howe.
Thanks, Craig.
Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame.
All right.